Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm doing my book review on the Department of Rare Books and Special Collections by Eva Jurczyk, and I unfortunately gave this book a 1 out of 5, which is my first 1-star review rating of the year 2022. Before I go into my full review, I like to do my Booktuber Shoutout segment. So the reason why I do this in all my videos is because the Booktuber community is so great and has been very welcoming towards me. And if I can give a shout to someone so that you could find books that maybe you normally won't come across, why not, right? So today's Booktuber Shoutout is to Dewani's World of Books. She is a kid, I think around 7 to 10 years old. I believe her parents manage her account, so you can't really comment on any of her videos. But I think it's just great that she has such supportive parents to support her for her passion for reading and books, and I think it's great to have this outlet for her. So I'll link her channel down below if you want to give Dewani some support. And as always, I would appreciate it if you can hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, give this video a thumbs up. And if you've read this book or have any recommendations for me to read in the future, please leave a comment down below. The author, Eva Jurczyk, is a fellow Canadian. She lives in Toronto and she works at the University of Toronto as the coordinator of humanities collections at the library, which I thought was really cool because this book is also set in the library and we follow the protagonist who works in the library. So I think it's really cool to see the parallelism between the author Eva, and also her protagonist in the story. In an interview about this book, on top of her currently working in the library, when she was a graduate student, she actually did work at the Rare Books department at the University of Toronto. And in this department, there'd be tons of rolling stacks. So if you're not familiar with that, is that when libraries, they have these shelves that at the end you can have this crank and you can roll the shelves. And she said there were thousands of them in this department she worked in of rare books, and it felt really spooky and things could get lost and never be found, and you could be alone there by yourself not knowing someone else is there. So this is what inspired her to write this book, and now knowing that backstory of what led her to be inspired to write this book, I kind of give this book a 2 out of 5 now, just because it comes from a bit of her life, and I can see now more the motivation behind the story. This book, The Department of Rare Books and Special Collections, is Eva's debut novel. Even though I personally wasn't a fan of this first book, I'm really excited for the second book she's working on. So as of now, it's a speculative fiction, and what it is it's set in Eastern Europe where the sun hasn't been seen in 30 years. But one day, a pirate radio broadcast reports an unclouded day in Prague. And in the following weeks, thousands of people migrate to the closed border, hoping to feel the sun on their faces for the first time in their lives. So I think this book sounds really interesting. It's speculative, so it's obviously not a real situation, but it's fun to think about a situation and speculate on what the possibilities are. So like, why can people not see the sun? Why it's been so long? How does the world exist? So it's kind of cool to see how she will form that world. So yeah, I'm really excited when her book comes out for that. So this book came out pretty recently. It actually was published in 2022 this year. And as mentioned earlier, it is her debut novel, and the genre is mystery. As I mentioned, this book is a mystery, so how we set up the story is Liza. She's taken a sabbatical from the Department of Rare Books and Special Collections, but then she's suddenly called back to act as the acting director because the current director, Christopher, has stroke and is in a coma, and he has the only code to open the safe where he recently purchased a $500,000 rare book. So Liza gets the code to open the safe, but the safe is empty. So now we begin our mystery. Who has the book? Was it lost? Was it stolen? We don't know. So that's how the book starts. As this book is a mystery, there are a bunch of characters to arouse suspicion, so I'll only cover a few of them. So the first one is Liza, who is our protagonist and the main character, and she struggles with trying to figure out who's guilty because, for sure we know that she's not guilty. There's also Christopher, who was the director, and he's in a coma, and we also learn a lot about his secret life as well as she tries to unravel the mystery of the missing book. We also have President Garber, who is the president of university, and he's kind of the person that's like, we should report this to the cops, like we should keep it within the library, because if word gets out, donors will not donate to the library anymore. And of course there's a bunch of her co-workers like Frances, Max, Dan, and her husband, who she confides in, and who kind of like, you know, keeps her mind in place as well. And another co-worker is Miriam and her husband as well. So there's lots of different cast of characters who could lead to why this book is missing. Even though I gave this book a 1 out of 5, I thought there were lots of interesting common themes. So the first one I thought was how when Lizo found out the book was missing, her first reaction was to report to the police, which is something that I would do as well. But President Garber, the president of the university, was like, no, we shouldn't do it, because if we do it and donors find out, we will see them irresponsible. They may not want to donate anymore. So I think the first common theme that I found very prevalent through the whole book was the idea of saving face versus doing the right thing, because it seems so obvious you want to do the right thing to report it, but you know, you have to think about the consequences or the impact of doing the right thing sometimes. Other common theme I found in this book, which I can see why it might give some people a higher rating for this book, is that Lizo is in her middle age, early 50s kind of age. So in the book, there's a lot of struggle with how at the workplace she's not taken seriously because it's male dominated, and she doesn't have a lot of power or say in what to do. So I think the book kind of reminds me of this other book I read called A Startup Wife, about the struggles of being a woman in the workplace. I personally haven't really experienced that, so I couldn't relate to the protagonist's struggles, but I can see how that's a common lesson or theme that a lot of people could relate to while reading this book. As I gave this book a 1 out of 5, there's lots of things I didn't like. The first big one was I didn't really like the writing style. I felt it dragged quite a bit, even though it wasn't a very thick book. Other thing for me that I didn't like was it was hard for me to root for protagonist Lizo. She has done things in her past and her present that I was like, I don't really understand why she thinks that way. And on top of that, all the other characters in the cast, I can relate to their motivations as well. And usually when I don't relate to characters in books, I can at least empathize with why they're acting the way they are. But these characters in this book, I couldn't relate and I couldn't empathize with them. And a lot of times I felt like they weren't even doing their best, they were actively doing not their best. So it was just really hard for me to get into the book. And I'll have to admit that several times I thought about not finishing the book, but I do have a goal to try to at least push through every book, because you know, someone took the time to write this book for me to enjoy, so I want to respect their work and just try to finish it, and so I can get a full feeling of their story. The one thing I did enjoy about this book is that because it is a book about books and people working in the library, there are lots of big words that are used, and I had to Google tons of words to know the meaning, so I quite enjoy that because it really expanded my vocabulary. So on Goodreads, this book got an average of 3.3 out of 5. Some people like me felt like the book was okay, it just wasn't a home run. Like, there was lots of opportunities, I think, for the book to have been really great, but it just fell short in many places, and it really just added up. I do have to share that one of the 5 out of 5 reviews, and I kind of like laugh at this, but in a good way, is that the author, Eva, actually wrote a review, and she gave it a 5 out of 5, but her comment did say she's biased because she wrote it. So I think it's kind of cool to see her engage on Goodreads with other readers, and also, you know, she obviously doesn't take herself too seriously. There were a number of 4 and 5 reviews. As you can see, the average is 3.3. I do have to say, to be fair, I haven't read a lot of mysteries in my life, so I'm not really sure that maybe I didn't like the writing because I just felt frustrating. I just wanted to know the answer. But some people love how there's a big range of characters from different aspects of Lizo's life that could be the suspect. But for me, I was just like, oh my god, I just felt like it was dragging. So maybe I just gave it a bad rating because mysteries aren't really for me. Other reason that people really highly rank this book was, I mentioned earlier in my common themes, is the struggle that Lizo had as a woman in the workplace, and a lot of people related to that experience. So that's very similar to another book I read earlier this year called A Startup Wife, which I'll link that review down below as well. Two reasons I think you should read this book is if you like mysteries, I would love to hear what you thought because I have no experience in mysteries. And the second reason why I think you should read this book is if you love a book about books. And I think for a lot of us book fanatics is that when a book is about books, we kind of automatically like it. So if you like that and you like mysteries, I think this book is for you. Now I will share how this book made me feel because as always, if you ask me in a week, in a month, in a year from now, I probably won't remember what the book or what the characters were about, but I'll always remember how a book made me feel. So this book made me feel full of wonder. Like I'm very curious about rare book departments and collections. Because if you think about it, like these kind of forgotten departments in libraries, like my university had one too. People don't really use it that often. You don't really think about it, but millions of dollars get funded and donated to this department in these libraries. So I'm really curious to learn more about that and also different security levels. I do remember in university, I had to use a rare book for research one time and I had to go to a special room where I had to use only the pencil and the paper in that room that was already there, so I couldn't bring my own stuff, and I believe I also had to wear gloves. So it'd be cool to learn more about rare book departments. That is my review for the Department of Rare Books and Special Collections by Eva Jurczyk. Let me know what you think if you read this book down below. I do not have the book with me right now because I already returned it to the library. And if you want to join me for my next book, it is called Still Running by Vanessa's Zuisei Goddard. If you love running and also spirituality or meditation really speaks to you, I feel this book will be really great for you. All right, see you guys next time. Bye.